Some content or topics discussed could trigger a past anxiety or be sensitive or disturbing to listen to or view. Please view and listen with caution.
Welcome to Walking Tall. My name is Chris Maliszewski, and I will be one of three hosts helping to navigate this all-important conversation, talking mental health, walking tall with, and maybe even for you with my two co-hosts, Dr. Vanetta LaRosa and Mr. Todd Blyleven. And what is this walking tall, you ask? Well, we're going to get into that a little bit later on, but first, I am so excited to introduce you to Dr. Vanetta LaRosa. Dr. LaRosa has earned a PhD from Southern Illinois, became a BCBA and earned a doctoral distinction, and she's also completed a postdoctoral respecialization in clinical neuropsychology. Dr. LaRosa is the founder of Helping Hands Children's Services and is now the executive clinical director of Helping Hands Family in New York. Not only does Dr. LaRosa have the experience and education, but she also has an inspiring passion for helping all people with different abilities. Dr. LaRosa, welcome to Walking Tall, and thank you.
Thank you. I am so proud to walk tall with you, Chris and Todd, and I look forward to this journey we're on together. I know it will be life-changing for so many people, as it already has been for myself. I started my passion of helping people when I was really little. I was about 8 years old when I met my first friend with autism. And this little boy had some severe impairments and wasn't verbal and had some aggressive behavior, but we were family friends, and I was positive that he was my friend. It didn't matter that he couldn't speak. It didn't matter that he could become aggressive. I wanted to understand him. I wanted to interact with him, and I wanted to be his friend. And I genuinely believed that he was mine. And this was a friendship that lasted quite a few years. And I knew pretty much my whole life that I had a deeper understanding of people in general, and that transcended language, transcended ability. I think all people have their own unique set of abilities, and this led me to start working in residential facilities when I was in my very early 20s. I worked with adults with a variety of intellectual and neurodevelopmental disabilities, and I loved every minute of my time with them. I used to take them out in the community. We had a nice bus, and I was not a great driver, I'll have to tell you, but it was a big bus. It fit about 15 people. I was the only driver. And on Friday nights, I worked the 4 to 12 shift specifically to take them out on the town. We went to dinner, friendlies, bowling, movies, a variety of things. And I knew that it was the highlight of their week, and therefore it was the highlight of my week. And while my friends were out clubbing, I was taking the guys out and having some great time with them. And it was really, at that early age in life that I started to realize my true advocacy roots, because we would go into a restaurant. Now, mind you, I was 22 probably at the time, and I probably looked about 15, to be honest with you. And I had 12 adults with a variety of disabilities: a traumatic brain injury, Down syndrome, intellectual disability, autism, whatever else have you, all with me. So imagine how the community sometimes may respond when they see a group of people come in to an establishment. So I used to have a difficult time with some of the responses from people around me, just rude looks and strange, sorts of treatment. And I realized, at this young age, that I was a voice for these beautiful people. And, I would go over very politely, as always, to whomever it was that was staring at us or giving us a hard time. And I would say, "Excuse me, is there something I can help you with?" And they would just look at me, and I said, "Well, you've been staring at me for a few hours, so I would like to know, here I am, if there's a question you'd like to ask or something I can help you with." And always it was, then they shut right down and turned away. But I hoped that each and every interaction that I had with people in this world and in the course of my life, that I made a difference, that I impacted them in some way, to let them know that these people have just as much of a right to be here and enjoy themselves as you do. And nobody should offend anybody by how they look or how they're perceived or how they're misunderstood, quite frankly.
Sure.
And that advocacy and understanding for people is something that's deeply embedded in who I am and who I was born to be. So I have extended that desire to help people to a variety of circumstances and populations and trainings and all kinds of other things that I've done. I won't bore you with all of that.
No, it's absolutely not boring. And you know, your description of your early experiences is exactly what Walking Tall is all about. You have just explained how you walk tall for those individuals you worked with at an age of 15 or 22 and have done so even through your professional career. So why don't you just briefly describe a little bit of your accolades, your education, where you went to school, you know, tell our listeners who they can expect to hear from on a consistent basis.
Sure. So I started in Stony Brook University here on Long Island. I received a bachelor's degree in psychology. While I was there, I worked in the neuropsychology laboratory, getting some training. I was always very interested in neuropsychology. Then I went on to receive a master's degree in behavioral psychology from Queens College. And then I went to Southern Illinois University. And I was really excited to get into that program because it was just an awesome, top-notch program that had some of the top professors in the industry for applied behavior analysis, as well as educational psychology, which were two of my absolute passions kind of fused together. So for me, they were doing research that I liked, and they had professors there that were just idols in my mind. So I was fortunate enough to get into that PhD program at the time. Then I received a doctoral fellowship, and I worked underneath the late Dr. Barbara Cordoni. She created the first college program for individuals with learning disabilities. Now, this was just the most wonderful experience I could ever possibly describe. I was trained by this absolutely brilliant woman who took me under her wing and supported me tremendously while I received a doctoral fellowship, mind you, which was a wonderful testament to my skill and my drive, you know, to work in the field. And while I was in that program with her, I learned how to administer full psychoeducational batteries to individuals with learning disabilities. So the interesting thing about people with learning disabilities, whether it's dyslexia or some expressive or receptive language disorder, these individuals a lot of the times have a normal, healthy IQ, sometimes a high IQ, but they have a reading ability or a math level of a third or a fourth or a fifth grader. And so they can't really do the work at the college level. Their intellect is there, but the disability affects their ability to show it and thrive in an academic environment.
Sure.
So these individuals are often left with a really low self-esteem and really just not a lot of understanding of where they fit in the world and what they could actually offer. So Dr. Cordoni had a few gifted kids herself with learning disabilities. And with her, I went to Duke University. I mean, brilliant doesn't even describe how she was. So she created this program at Southern Illinois University that, number one, put everyone through a full 2-day psychoeducational battery. All the students conducted the tests, and we scored everything by hand, mind you, which now they have all these wonderful computer programs, but it would take me 2 weeks to score, you know, 20 or 30 of these tests. But she taught us how to delve into every aspect of someone's mind and their cognition, how they learn, how they think, how they process, where the deficits are, so that we could microanalyze it together as a team and put a program together for that person, which included books on tape, note-taking, communication with the professors, tutoring, all these sorts of things. And as a graduate fellow, I had a caseload of students that I was responsible to do all of those things for. So
Sure.
I would navigate, I would talk to their professors. A lot of professors, they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want any modifications. They didn't want any support. And those were the tough battles that, again, I had to go up and say, hey, look, this person has 125 IQ. They can handle this. We just have to give them the supports that they need in order to thrive. And that is what Walking Tall kind of comes back to for me. Everybody needs supports for one thing or another: mental health issues, learning issues, self-esteem issues, life issues, exposure to trauma, which we'll get into. And everybody needs the supports around them that they deserve in order to thrive. And that was another way that I was able to extend my desire and passion for helping people walk tall. So I learned all that. And then I'll try to make a quick version out of this. I knew it was going to be hard. But then I received a full academic scholarship for my PhD, which I was really happy about because I didn't expect it. I did have really good grades going in, obviously, because you can't get accepted into a PhD unless you're around, somewhere around 3.6, 3.8, something like that. But then I had a 4.0 GPA, and then I received an academic scholarship for that, and that just made my life really it helped out a lot.
Yeah. And listen, you mentioned Dr. Cardoni. Is that how you say her name?
Barbara Cardoni, yes.
Yeah, and how she took you under her wing. And I could say, in speaking for Todd a little bit, the preparation of which we had to do and complete to launch this Walking Tall podcast. I'm sure I could speak for Todd and say, like, we felt as if you've taken us under your wing and have really walked tall for us on this process to get us to launch this podcast. And so, Vanetta, we're just so excited to have you. We're going to get to know you more a little bit throughout this podcast and our future episodes. And just thank you for being here, and thank you for being willing to work with us. And thank you for walking tall.
The second I heard it, the second I heard about it, the second I heard this mission, I knew that it was something that I had to be part of, and it has now become a driving force of my entire thought process. So you have me for the long haul. Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, now, ladies and gentlemen,
Amazing.
It's my pleasure to bring you Mr. Todd Blyleven. Todd has an extensive background in professional and amateur sports. Some of you may even already recognize his last name. He is a current tech and business developer and the owner of the Scout Hub. Todd is an absolute hero and a mental health expert by experience. Todd has walked tall for me for about the last 8 months, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Todd's about to tell you who he is and his experience and why he's walked tall. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Todd Blyleven.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Vanetta, for walking tall with me today. I don't know that I can follow Dr. Vanetta LaRosa's bio there. That's crazy.
You can't. You just can't.
Yeah, I'm not worthy.
Don't try. Don't try.
Super impressive and impactful. And it's so cool to hear just the background and the meaning of why your base of who you became and who you were before, but then with training, what you've been able to do and help so many people. So it's just truly remarkable. So great stories. Thank you. So yes, my name is Todd Blyleven. I grew up in a Major League Baseball clubhouse, basically. My dad, Burt Blyleven, played in the major leagues for 23 years or so, and currently a Hall of Fame member, which was amazing to watch growing up. And, just I think you watch the adversity of a professional athlete, how they lose, how they win, what their takeaway is, their consistency in life, and really their never-ending passion for dealing with adversity and their perseverance to succeed, right? And I always found that intriguing to watch a player lose one day and come back and get back on that consistency train, and then come out to try to win every pitch, every at bat in the baseball world. And so, growing up, I never took for granted the opportunities that were presented to me, the people that I was able to be around. Now I look back on it, and I was around some pretty amazing athletes, some amazing people. I used to call them my brothers and uncles, and some maybe my grandfathers, of course I had family, but I was always surrounded by, people that were always achieving greatness in whatever field it was, whether it was the ticket booth manager to the GM of a sports organization to a prominent business owner that ran, say, Coca-Cola or somebody like that, to major league players and stars. And again, never took it for granted. In my own path, I played, high school, college sports, played professional baseball. I was an up and down guy. Lived the dream on the bus, 21-hour bus rides, sleeping with your buddy, and you're all huddled up. And I'm 6'5", so nobody wanted to sit next with me. Yeah. So, just a really great time in my life. You talk about dealing with adversity, and you're watching your friends graduate from college. They've got these relationships with their significant others. Maybe some are getting married. They're talking about families. They're starting these jobs, and I'm making $900 a month, living a dream, playing minor league baseball up and down, going all over the country. And it was tough. It was very challenging at times. You wanted to give up, but that perseverance kept you moving forward. And at some point, every athlete's days come to an end. So that, happened to me. And I went through a serious depression for a little over a year. I was very depressed, didn't know what I was supposed to do for the rest of my life. And I kept thinking, I need to keep moving. I need to keep my boots moving forward. The way my parents raised me was to, get up, dust yourself off, and just keep going. And there's the sun is always coming up tomorrow. So keep moving forward, which always translated to me as walking tall. Just walk tall through your adversity. You can get through things, push through it. And you'll try to figure it out. And I wasn't one that ever really reached out for help. I didn't like asking for help. I didn't want support. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to be able to try to figure myself out and what my being was supposed to be down the road. I always had a passion for helping people. I whether it was playing catch with a little boy out at the park because his dad asked me to help him work on his throwing mechanics as I'm working out. I always tried to take time for that, for people that were asking for help. Or driving down the road and a car rolls in front of you. We've all seen those things. I'm jumping out and trying to do what I can to try to help those people, because I just don't want people to be hurt. So, I went into Major League Scouting, became a Major League Baseball scout. That was kind of my first test of post play. What am I going to do? I'm either going to be a coach, I'm going to be a scout. I went into scouting. I did really well there, but it was tolling on the family and being on the road. So ended up getting into the corporate world of sports. I really enjoyed that part, worked for some amazing brands, amazing people that opened up their door to me. And in a time of mass confusion of where I'm supposed to be in my life, I had people like a Tony Armand, that was the big CEO of Shock Doctor Sports. And Tony, had that conversation like, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? And just these lunches that I would have with him in Southern California, he took the time to spend with me because he really wanted me to succeed in whatever that was. And I thought that was so amazing, because here's this guy that's got, he's big $1 million companies and all these things. And he's taken the time to spend with me. And I thought that was really impactful. So I always tried to do the same. If people were asking in my corporate career, or young people that would come in, I try to help. Well, we moved to Texas about five years ago. And a little after we moved to Texas, a couple months later, we went to a country concert in Las Vegas, and I'll get into that later. But it was in 2017. It's called Route 91, where there happened to be our worst mass shooting in modern history. And I was there. Saw a lot of really bad things. And I was fortunate enough to help a lot of people that night. And I know we're going to talk about that in our next episode. Thankfully, my wife and family members are okay. And I was able to get out unharmed, at least from not being shot. But, I ended up having shoulder surgeries and hernias and all kinds of stuff from that event. So walking out of there, I was not walking tall. I walked tall through that event, but I was not walking tall mentally coming out of that experience, obviously. I had seen the worst in humanity in that moment. And I got back after that event, and I got a phone call from now one of my brothers, and he's amazing, but he opened up his world to me on what I'm going through mentally, and through his own experience through the military and what I was feeling. And it opened up at least a vision of where my next steps were going with myself, what I could expect. And I kind of started to see things in front of me so I could prepare myself to then help myself. And then I knew I wasn't alone. So here I have another amazing person in my life that's now walking tall for me to help me get back up to walk tall forward. And it's just been that way, since. So I have PTSD, I have my own stories of going through therapy and trying to find the best one. Finally, I found my angel. She's amazing. My story of EMDR and how that was introduced, and we'll get into all that stuff later. But I've been there. I've seen a lot. I go through it every day. I walk tall every day through my own anxieties. I found my peace. I found my love. I found my inspiration and what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I couldn't be more excited about this podcast and what that email or text that you sent me, Chris, on January 16th, 2023. It just opened up an amazing opportunity, and we are going to have so much fun. We're going to get into some really hard conversations with some really cool people and some everyday people that are impactful to our lives, that are normal, hardworking citizens of this country and maybe even this world. And we're going to be able to help and share stories of adversity. I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me, in this group, to be surrounded by you two. It's so just God has a plan. I'm a big faith believer, and it's amazing how he just opens up doors, and when you say yes, great things happen. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, not as excited as I was to get a text from you on July 7th. 2022, and we'll get into that a little bit more throughout our episodes. But Todd has walked tall for a long time, and he's walked tall for me. And we'll get into a little bit of my story later on. But yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Chris Malazewski, and I will be a part of this most amazing group. Previously, I was a Division I college baseball coach for 10 years. I worked for 3 at Valparaiso, 7 at the University of Iowa. And as Todd was mentioning, living on buses and things of that sort kind of wore out its welcome for me as well. I was a college athlete and all those sorts, and I'll get into a little bit of that later on. But, my passion for helping people and my first recollection, now that I think long and hard about it, reverts back to my CPS days. I was a young kid in the Chicago public school system. And I earned what was called the Principal's Award, believe it or not. And the Principal's Award was someone that the principal recognized going above and beyond helping others. And I had a friend with Down syndrome that I would meet at breakfast time. When you're in Chicago public school system, you have hot lunch and hot breakfast provided to some of the students. So I was a partaker in that. And I just took a friendship to this young man with Down syndrome, and he became my friend. I helped him with his breakfast, things of that sort, and I earned an award. moving forward, about 6th or 7th grade, my family moved us from Chicago to a suburb, and I met 2 twins with MS, and they became my best friends. They were both from Syria, and they had a family of Syrian descent, so they had a really hard time integrating into the States, if you will. There was a slight language barrier, and I was their resource for integration, essentially. So I would help them with their walkers, get on and off the bus. I would go to their house and play video games with them, and I never really considered them as having a disability. They were just my friends. And so moving forward, as Todd had mentioned in baseball, I kind of started to realize I was fairly good at the game, and I started to get some opportunities and so on and so forth, and didn't get an opportunity to play professionally. But my senior year of college, we had got a brand new head coach, and he and I were very close bonded, and he recognized something in me, and he said, "No, you're not going to go on to the corporate career or do something like that. You're going to actually coach with me next year." And I had no plans upon graduation what I was going to do. In fact, I thought I was going to do some sort of journalism. But lo and behold, he said, "No, you're going to be a coach." And 10 years later, after 3 years at Valparaiso, 7 at the University of Iowa, which was my alma mater, I, like Todd, decided to hang it up. My family quality of life wasn't worth my career, frankly. And so I moved back from Iowa City to the Chicagoland area. I simply didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was kind of job hopping for a year or two, and ultimately decided I wanted to work in Parks and Rec. And so I took a part-time job at the Chicago Park District. I taught snag golf, if you know what that is. It's a golf learning tool for young kids. It's oversized equipment, things of that. Now, I'm a terrible golfer. I had no business teaching golf, but I wanted to work in Parks and Rec, and that was my first opportunity. So here I was, 10-year veteran of coaching Division I college baseball. I had a pension, and I had all these crazy things, and I'm taking a part-time job at the Chicago Park District. Few months later, a good friend of mine who I played travel baseball with in high school was the high school coach at Highland Park High School in Highland Park, Illinois. And he said to me, "Hey, there's this part-time job at the Park District as a baseball coordinator running the travel program. Are you interested?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it." About 4 months after that, I was full-time. And 7 years later, and about 8 different promotions, I'm now the director of recreation for the Park District of Highland Park. Part of those responsibilities is also serving as the co-chair of the Highland Park, Illinois Independence Day Parade. And tragically, I was a part of another mass shooting, which are becoming all too common in society. But on July 4th, 2022, I served as the co-chair of the Highland Park Parade, where a mass shooting occurred. 7 lives were lost, 48 were wounded, and hundreds, if not thousands, were wounded mentally, myself included. I was fortunate to not have physical harm, but I also suffer from PTSD. I've embarked on my mental health recovery, if you will, and a lot of that has been due to Todd walking tall for me, Vanetta walking tall for me, and this podcast. If not for our intent and our mission of walking tall becoming a movement, I don't know that I would have been so receptive at this point to my mental health issues and how I need to address them and the help I need. And so that's what this podcast is all about for me. It's about working with 2 like-minded individuals, and Dr. LaRosa and Todd, with just a wide range of experiences and education. And we're going to bring our experiences to the forefront so folks can learn through us and with us. And as Todd said, and Vanetta mentioned, we're going to have a breadth of great guests, all like us, with something to bring to the table. We're not specific to trauma. We're not specific to any type of mental health issue, frankly. We're here to walk tall for you and with you. And I'm just so excited to do that with my 2 co-hosts, Vanetta and Todd. Thank you so much. And we'll get into my story a little bit later on. But that's who we are, and that's who we're going to be. And I'm just so excited. So, I did acknowledge earlier on in the introduction, and we've mentioned several times, this walking tall movement and this passion we've created for ourselves and hopefully can instill upon others. But, Dr. LaRosa, talk a little bit about walking tall and what this has meant to you over the last month as we've kind of started this journey, and how you've thinking back in your professional and personal life have done so already. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, Chris and Todd, let me just start by saying telling your story and reliving even just the brief detail that you've introduced right now to all of us is the epitome of walking tall. It's the example. It's what you're doing, going towards something that caused you pain and distress and PTSD, rather than blocking it and going away from it. You're doing that to help others as well as to help yourselves. And that, I don't have to say a word more about walking tall, because that's a living example of it right there. People have asked me most of my life, after they ask me what I do for a living or what my experiences have been, people have said to me, well, how do you top that? And when I, I've been married a pretty long time now. I don't remember how long. No, I'm just kidding.
Congrats.
Over 20 years. But, in the dating scene, it was pretty tough. Like, what are you going to school for? What do you do? Like I said, most of my friends were out clubbing and I was working in the group home, and people felt like, wow, like, I just work at Starbucks. Like, how could I compare to you and what you do? And I just want to say that it's people like you that change the world, that make the differences day in and day out. How you've made those friends, Todd, how your eyes are always open to look for someone to help. How Chris, your friend with Down syndrome and the siblings with MS, how you just became their friend. You didn't think about popularity or what other people would think. These people meant something to you, and you walk tall for them. Todd, like you do every day with everything that you do. And this is what I've always tried to explain to people. You don't have to have a PhD and a postdoctoral respecialization. Of course, it helps when you're trying.
Because we don't have that, Todd, right? Let's be clear, folks.
I do not have that.
We're baseball guys.
When you're trying to help people, and you need an expertise to get to a certain level. Of course, it's necessary, but on so many levels, we have the ability as human beings to make a difference day in and day out. And if we live our lives with that open mind and open heart, we certainly can do that. And that is what my entire life's theme has been about. If there's anything that I've tried to do, it's that. And this is why this means so much to me, because there's no other way that I could think of any better than this, to come together, to share our stories and support one another, so that the community at large could see what we're about and know that there are people like us out there, and they're all around them. And hopefully it'll make people more comfortable reaching out and being there to lend a supportive ear, supportive arm, to walk tall together for people. So that's really why it means so much to me to be part of it, because it's the way that you live your life, and it's an expression of the ability to do that. It's kind of like a culmination of my life's work. It's everything I've ever tried to do on a global scale. So you mentioned that.
Say, Todd, you've had the fortunate opportunity of knowing Dr. LaRosa a little bit longer than I, but we are just so fortunate to have you on this podcast. When Todd and I were beginning to discuss how this could be formulated and what we felt like we can do to change the world, frankly, we recognized we needed an expert, right? Todd or I may be experts by experience in certain circumstances, but we, as you said, we don't have the doctoral degrees. We don't have the chops, if you will, to speak scientifically about what we're experiencing and about what some of our guests have experienced and will experience, right? So from a listener's perspective, the perspective that will be shared on a consistent basis via our podcast is going to be like no other. You have two folks like Todd and I who have witnessed the worst of the worst, but fortunately we're able to navigate some circumstances and complete some tasks to walk tall for people. But we also have you, Dr. LaRosa, who has the experience, the education, the brain power, if you will, to help others. And we recognize, and Todd, I'll turn it to you here in a second. But Todd and I recognize that, while our experience is unique and maybe interesting to people, we also recognize there's a science to what we're experiencing and what others have experienced. And there's research to show people how to work through their issues. And so with all that being said, your presence in this conversation is so needed. And I'm just so thankful that you've decided to join us on that. So thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And Todd, I've alluded a few times, and we're going to get into it more later on in future episodes about how we all met. We've never even been in the same room together yet, frankly, the three of us. But we have a bond. And so I'll tell you folks a little bit later on how Todd and I met. But Todd, briefly, just describe how this Walking Tall movement came about, what it means to you, where you want to see this go, and how you got here.
Yeah. I mean, there's been, I got goosebumps. Honestly, just to be talking about this has been something that's been pulling, really at my heart, since October 2nd for me. Really, I felt like I was spared for a reason. There's a higher purpose for the things that I did and what I was tasked to do on that horrible night, in helping so many and losing some, and what I have to walk through for the rest of my life with that. But I think the story itself has an opportunity to open up doors to others to learn how to deal with their anxiety. And you don't have to go through a mass trauma, a shooting, you don't have to go through something horrific to have anxiety. You don't have to, it's not about, even anxiety in our lives. Maybe it's something else that's bothering us that we just need to talk to somebody about. And when you try to eat that up inside and you try to fix it yourself, because I know I tried to do that for a while after my event. And I look back at all the other times that I've tried to fix myself internally and keep it to myself, it's never worked out. It's when I've been able to open up, or when I showed enough on the outside that something was really hurting me inside. I was severely depressed. I was upset. I was angry. I maybe went and drank too much sometimes because I just had no care in the world. It was when someone stopped me in whatever facet that was and said, "Hey, you okay? What's going on? Talk to me for a minute. No, don't leave. Talk to me. Let me know what's going on." I had a conversation with my dad the other day. Normally we don't talk about that kind of stuff, but I know he's there. I know that he'll listen now. Our relationship in terms of how the softness has come into our lives has really matured over the years, right?
That's powerful too, right?
It's so powerful. Yeah. And so to be able to have the conversation with someone when you're feeling down, or know that I call them my rocks, right? I've got my rocks that I can talk to about the worst things that go through my minds now, or my mind. See, I have two minds. I have one mind.
We got a lot of minds on this cast, folks.
It's all about, it's about community and being able to walk tall. And you know what, Vanetta, you said it right. And I like to call you Vanetta. I know it's Dr. Vanetta LaRosa and all the accolades, but we actually, and it's our story. It's funny how we met through her son, Vito, and there's this whole baseball relation, and we'll get into that. It's really, really cool. But you're right, though. When I guess, see, this is an example of my PTSD.
Yeah.
Happening right
Todd,
now.
it's okay.
So
Let me talk for a second. Yeah, totally cool. There's a few texts that I've mentioned, in over the last few weeks, in leading up to this, that have been life-changing, right? One was July 7th when you reached out to me, Todd, but January 16th, I had this overpowering feeling within me, what the heck is going on with me, right? Why did this occur to me? And I didn't say much as I was introducing myself, but I was on site for the Highland Park incident for about 7 hours, doing some just crazy things, and we'll talk more about that later. But like you, Todd, and you mentioned, I had this sensation of why did this happen and what good could come from it. And that's really where this thought started from. I've been in all of my baseball career, whether it was a player or a coach, I've had really tremendous influences. Todd, you have your rocks. I call them my board of directors, right? Like I got 5 or 6 guys or gals that sit on my board of directors that I can go to for certain things. And believe it or not, the individual that introduced you to me, frankly, he always said something that resonated with me is no matter where you go, leave it better than you found it. Right? No matter where you go, leave it better than you found it. And that was our motto and MO, whether it was on a baseball team or at a business or within our family. But I really believe, that through Dr. LaRosa's lifelong passion of learning and educating herself for this moment, and the experience is that you had, Todd, and that I unfortunately had as well, and via this podcast, we have an opportunity to leave the world better than we found it. And really that's what this podcast means to me. And that's what Walking Tall for each of you, for myself, when I can, because, as I said, I'm embarking on my mental health recovery. I've had one of my first intensive therapy sessions this past Monday. It's pretty cool, right? It's pretty cool, but nevertheless, that's the opportunity we have within Walking Tall on a weekly basis to change the world and leave it better than we found it through our education, our passions, and our experiences. And I'm just so thankful that you folks are really here to do that with me, and I'm here to do that with you because I know that's the same intention and mission you guys both had. So Todd, if you're feeling up to it, you want to take it back over, I'll give it back. Have at it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, doctor. Go ahead.
Just one quick thing, as I sit here and I listen to you both, and I know we're going to get into more of the details of your experiences as we go on, but these times and these moments that you might need to take for yourselves, this is a safe place. It's safe for all of us as well as anyone who listens to us. And it's just a testament to how our minds work. Our long-term memory system, consider it a vast warehouse of unknown capacity. You don't know what's inside of it. You have no idea. It's like a storage unit for everything you've ever owned in all your past lives. Everything's there. And you don't know what experience at what given moment in time is going to trigger an emotion, a thought, a memory, just even a sensation, even something like a sensory a sensation that you experience, which could then spark emotions. That's how our minds work. That's how some aspects of your PTSD or your memories of trauma or anxiety or anything else that you've experienced happen. So much kudos to you for stopping and embracing those moments and explaining to people what it is that's going on with you. That is brave. That is so brave. And I had to point it out, Todd, because I saw you do it. Chris, I see your wheels are turning as you're talking about things. There has to be some level of dissociation and disconnect for you to be able to talk calmly about, if we really put into reality what those traumas are. They're unreal, inhuman experiences that we cannot possibly digest and process. And the fact that you're able to do that in a forum like this, it shows your strength, it shows your bravery, and it shows your drive to help others. And I just wanted to point that out so people can learn from it. When you experience something, it might be a heart flutter. It might be all of a sudden you become cold or tingly. All of a sudden you lose track of what you're saying. Your memory seems to go. You dissociate, you disconnect, whatever it might be that your body is experiencing. That's your mind trying to communicate, hey, it's a little much for me right now. And learning how to work through that is something, it's a lifelong journey for so many of us. And for myself too, even though I'm in the therapeutic field, I have things that I have to walk tall for myself for as well as for other people. So I just want to take a quick second and point out your bravery and your self-knowledge and your commitment to yourselves to walk tall is truly an example to follow for so many. I just needed to throw that in.
Yeah, no, thank you. Todd, are you up to continuing your thoughts?
Yeah, well, thank you to both of you. Number one, Chris, for cutting me off and recognizing that I did have a vision of what had happened, when you talk about it. So it does pull on you. It rips you inside, and you lose your train of thought. And Vanetta, thank you so much for your kind words. And what I really love, and this is a great example of what we're about to embark on together, is we're going to hear stories, and the idea that we have someone, I call her the doctor, or the director of all knowing,
Yeah.
but really this amazing person that has all this knowledge that's going to be able to stop us and explain to people on what is going on. So I know I'm excited to learn. And what I was just going to mention was that you had talked about how difficult this journey is going to be for myself and for Chris, or any of our guests that come on and revisit that traumatic event, or that piece in their life that really sucked, and how they're able to talk about this, how they were able to talk about how they were able to either stand up and walk tall, or how community came in, whether it was a person or a group of people, and help them walk tall together and share their stories. Because I'm going to go back into that place. And I know in our next episode, I'm going to be in that place, but I want to do this because it's important, not for me to revisit what happened for me personally. I don't ever want to revisit that, but there were 26,000 people at that event with me physically. Hundreds of thousands of people that were calling on those 26,000 of people. There were more than that were affected globally on that. In every bad thing that happens, no matter where we are, whatever that situation is, because of today's media, it's totally amplified. So I am going to walk tall with you two and share our stories and try to get other people to share their stories, so we can all learn how we can walk tall together. Because my story might resonate with someone else, and maybe one person might be saying, you know what, I got those headaches too. I've been trying to battle this, and I'm just not liking the way that I am right now. So I'm going to follow Todd's advice. I'm going to do what he did. I'm going to go get me some help. I'm going to revisit therapy again. I'm going to try to find something. I'm going to listen to what Dr. LaRosa's, listen to what she said, even the part of the never ending, factory of storage space of knowledge. It's just a cool way to think about things. And then Chris, your adversity and how I've seen you go from mush to strength and passion. And by the way, everybody, I call Chris the doctor or director of ideation on this podcast.
They're not good ones,
but yeah, it's all about self-sacrifice to help others. And we can only do this together, and we're stronger as a unit, right? We have strength in ourselves, but we're stronger as a team. So love wins. I'm excited to be on this journey with you too.
Yeah, I can't, I'm just so excited this is finally coming to fruition. It's been less than a month that we've thought about doing something this elaborate and creating a movement. But it seemed like forever, right? It seemed like it's taken us so long to get to this point. But I'm just so excited. I've had the experience of having many people walk tall for me, and you'll hear how Todd's walked tall in many instances. He mentioned me being mush. There's many instances where I didn't want to call anybody else but him, because I didn't want to do to others what I felt like he could handle, right? Having lived through his experience and being 5 years into your journey, Todd, and me just 7 or 8 months, right? I think the perspective that we can create for all types of folks that are interested in listening to us is unique. And while you and I have similar experiences of trauma and PTSD via an unimaginable experience, there's other folks that we're going to be having on here who have eating disorders, or have marital problems, or have addiction issues, or have suicide thoughts, things of that sort. So, I want our listeners to also know that, yes, we have a common bond, Todd and I, via mass shooting, and Dr. LaRosa is here to help bring it all together from a scientific research education perspective. But within our networks, within all of our networks, we have people who have opened up to us about their issues because of knowing what we've experienced and our desire to tell people, hey, I'm in a bad place right now. I need help. And then, or, hey, we can attest, Todd, the folks we've kind of clued into what our intentions are of Walking Tall in this podcast and the Zoom meetings we've had and the stories people have shared organically just because they felt comfortable. And that's so powerful and that's so healing to people to get that off their chest. But in a sense, to three folks like us, it's also healing for us to know that we're helping because that's who we are as a group. We're here to help. Not only each other, but our listeners, our guests, and anybody else that we can touch for that matter. And it's so important for us to instill that upon everybody we touch moving forward. So, that's what this means to me and where I think together we can get, and I know we'll get there. And I'm just so humbled and happy to be doing this with you two and the many guests we're going to have. So, Dr. LaRosa, before we kind of sign off, is there anything else you'd want to just say before I kind of highlight our next episode and what listeners can expect?
Just super quick. I haven't known you that long at all, but I feel like it's been a lifetime. I listen to your mission.
It's ours. It's not
I know
mine.
who
It's
you
ours.
are. Yeah,
It's ours.
and I just feel as if there's a connection that has existed for some time in the universe that we're just getting to learn about now. So
Yeah. And if not, and we'll talk more later through future episodes, but if not for the great game of baseball, the three of us would have never, ever, ever known each other. And that's true.
So true. Started out as such an innocent phone call. We'll tell that story next time, Todd.
And Todd, what about you? Without saying too much, and I'll tease it a little bit, our next episode, you're going to make yourself extremely vulnerable and you're going to tell as detailed of a story that you're able to tell that day. Because I think what we all could recognize that on a different day, we might get a different story. We might get a different Todd, right? And that's okay. But just talk to us a little bit, before we go, like, how are you feeling about disclosing these details and this experience? What can our listeners expect to hear from you in terms of what you experienced in your mental health recovery? Just give us a quick synopsis of where you think we may go next week when you tell your story.
I think it will be important for people to understand the feelings that I had prior to the first shot, what was going on with me mentally, my surrounding, what everybody was doing. And then the moment that first shot happens and you realize you're in that unbelievably horrible situation and what it feels like to run for your life. I think it's important for people to understand what maybe our military, our first responders, those that put themselves in harm's way, those that are caught in that harm's way, in horrible circumstances, that feeling of, oh my God, this just happened to me. Now I need help. And they're not always going to ask for help. So I want to share some of those stories, my story of what I went through, what it felt like internally. And I want to give some praise to some people that became my rocks, that opened up to me, my experience through church and just, where I'm at today, my experience in finding a therapist, my experience with EMDR therapy. So I'd like to talk about that, what that meant to me, how it really helped me, and where I'm at right now in terms of my mental health and who I define myself as in 2023. That didn't define me, but it sure did open up a new world of understanding and better understanding to what life is really meant for and prioritized the little drama in my life that I dealt with prior to that event that I thought was so impactful or so important. And now it's reset. And so it's really given me an opportunity to hit the reset button in my life and walk taller and walk more with love in my heart. And I'm hoping that my story can resonate with a lot of people and they can talk to somebody, get some help, share their story with other people. I think we're going to have a website. We're going to, have some resources on there eventually with our Walking Tall podcast website. There's teaser in the first episode. There's something coming, everybody. Just letting you know.
Yeah.
This is going to be so much fun in terms of how excited I think we're all going to be and how fulfilled, even though I think we're all fulfilled in our lives, but we are just going to get ready our hearts are going to absolutely double, triple, quadruple in size in just the joy I think that we're going to have with being able to help so many people. And I'm super, super excited. So,
yeah, I can't, very well said. We have big plans. As Todd said, the three of us, amongst many other resources we've already kind of tapped into and have really gained insight from to help us get to this point. But we have a lot farther reach to extend ourselves. This podcast is just one component of that. But I just can't thank the both of you enough, as I've said several times today, for embarking on this journey with me and our listeners and those that we can walk tall for and with. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to tune in next week to episode 2, where we hear the detailed story of Todd Blyleven and how on October 1st, 2017, he walked tall for 8+ hours as he helped save lives as a mass shooting occurred at the Route 91 Harvest Festival, his mental health journey and his path to recovery, and how he's walked tall for many, including myself. So with that being said, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Walk tall.
Walk tall.
Walk tall, everyone. All right.